Now, once you get to the airport, you have to figure out how to get to the hotel. Now, a lot of times, there's multiple ways you can go. You could rent a car, you could take a train, you could take a bus. Your hotel that you're staying at may have its own shuttle bus. You can check on that. Or you can take a taxi. And again, these different options cost different amounts of money. Usually taxi is the most expensive. And a lot of times that's where it helps. If you're traveling with someone, you can share a taxi. But one thing, so you just want to consider that. And usually you can get information from the conference organizers. For example, the Association for Asian Studies always provides information on shuttle buses, how much they cost, and you can often times organize those online. They also give information on usually how much the taxi costs from the hotel to the airport. And that's very important. So for example, once I was on the, I was supposed to take the taxi to the hotel, and I got in the taxi, and the taxi driver started off, and he said, "Oh, the meter's not working." And that's really a bad sign, right? That's a lot of times that's an attempt by the taxi driver to play a trick on you and try and cheat you out of money, because they'll say, oh, okay, they'll quote you a price. Now, he said, "Look, I'm sorry, the meter's broken. I can take you there for $30. Now, fortunately, I had looked up how much it cost to get to the hotel, and the hotel guide said between $25 and $30. So I knew that the guy was, I don't know if the meter really was broken, but he was only asking $30. $30 is about usually what it costs, so I said, okay, that's fine. But that's just something you want to be careful about. You also need to be, and by the way, if you're taking the taxi from the airport, usually you want to do research on the taxi, or I'm sorry, you want to do research on the airport and find out where you should get the taxis. Sometimes there'll be people in the airports trying to get you to go in their taxi and not go on the official taxis, not go where you're supposed to wait. Usually if you do that, you're going to end up paying more, and they may be criminals. So you want to be careful about that. Now, when you pack, you want to make sure that you pack clothes suitable for presenting in your carry-on luggage, because your luggage might get lost. This happened to me. Okay, I packed all my clothes in my checked luggage and no clothes in my carry-on luggage. And I missed a flight, and so my luggage was lost, and I didn't get my luggage for a couple days. So I had to present in a old shirt and shorts. Right now, when you present at a conference, you should be wearing nice clothes. If you're a woman, you should be wearing like a nice dress or pantsuit. If you're a man, you should be wearing like a sport coat and a tie. And I presented in shorts because I broke that rule. So make sure that you have clothes suitable for presenting in your carry-on luggage. Also, make sure that you have any medicine you need in your carry-on luggage as well. You don't want to be caught without your medicine. That can be really a major problem, especially if you go to a country where you don't know the language very well or you don't have insurance or something. Make sure you have your medicine. One thing you should also consider is whether it is an international conference or a domestic conference. An international conference, you can't really bring food with you. But if it's a domestic conference, you can bring some food with you. I usually bring some breakfast food with me. For example, you could bring cereal, you could bring fruit, you can bring all that kind of thing, and that will save you money when you're on your conference. So that's one thing to think about. I usually pack a lunch and possibly a dinner if I can, if it's domestic, because I don't care if you have food. But that's one thing you want to think about, because any little bit of money you can save is good. So you've gotten to your hotel, and now you're at the conference. You want to make sure that you keep practicing your presentation. I usually practice it the day before the presentation and the day of the presentation, just to make sure that I'm not going to be too nervous and that it will last within the time limit. When it comes time for your panel, make sure you arrive early. Usually it's a good idea to make sure you can find the room at least the day before. So even before your panel begins, try and find out what room it's going to be in and know where it is. When you go to the panel, make sure you bring both print and electronic copies of your presentation and possibly your own laptop. To give you, all sorts of things can go wrong. You don't want to just rely on electronics. Let me give you an example. Once I went to a presentation, and everyone had PowerPoint, but the projector wasn't working. And so people weren't sure, it was going to be very difficult for them to present. Well, and there was problems also with the computer. not working. So the projector wasn't working, the computer wasn't working. I had printed out my slides to my PowerPoint. So I just I said, look, I'll just go first, and while I'm presenting, you can just try and fix the computer. And I presented, and I had no problem presenting because I printed out my PowerPoint slides. And then by the time I finished, they had fixed the computer and the other people could go. And because of that, we didn't lose any time. So that's something you want to do. You always want to have multiple. I usually have a copy on my laptop. I email myself a copy, and I have a copy on a USB, and I bring a print copy. Now, when you're actually presenting, relax and have fun. Just try and enjoy yourself. Be confident. If you don't feel confident, just pretend you're confident. People won't know the difference. When you finish your presentation, people will hopefully ask you questions and give you advice. I really want to recommend that you be patient with audience questions. Sometimes people will criticize your paper. If they do, don't take it serious. You do want to take it seriously. Don't take it personally. Don't let it hurt your feelings. Just say, if someone says something like that, just say, that bothers you, just say, thank you for your criticism. That's something I'll think about. You don't really want to get in an argument or a fight. If someone is asking you kind of rude questions, they look bad. You don't look bad. They look bad. And just let them look bad. I've been at presentations that have led to some really weird arguments, and everyone looked kind of bad because they really fought with each other. It's better just say, thank you for your criticism. I'll be sure to think about it as I revise my paper. Now, sometimes what's going to happen to you, especially when you're just starting off, is that you're not going to have a lot of people come to your panel. Sometimes you'll have, for example, I've given panels very early Sunday mornings at conferences, and no one goes to early Sunday morning conference panels. I once was on a panel. There were more people in our panel than in the audience. We had an audience of 2 people, and that's frustrating. It's frustrating when you present your paper and there's not really anyone there to hear it. But try not to let that bother you. Don't be disappointed by low turnout. Don't be upset. Just go ahead and do the best you can. Remember, it still goes on your curriculum vitae. So you still get credit for it. They don't ask you how many people showed up. That's not an issue. Remember, you'll still get comments from your chair. Right? You'll have a chair who you've given your paper to in a timely manner. That person will give you comments. So that'll work. That will still help you. And it's still good practice. It's still good practice to do that, to go ahead and present. So don't be bothered if you have low turnout. Now, while you're at the conference, remember, you're not just there to present a paper. One thing you can do, for example, is to go see the sites. Some conferences even have tours of the city that are available. So you can always do that. Honestly speaking, I'm not a huge fan of doing that. But if you want to do that, that may be your only chance to travel. Go ahead and see the sites. The reason I'm not a big fan of doing that is I think it's really important to make sure to attend other people's panels. I've been to conferences before where people have just presented their panel and then disappeared, and they didn't go to other people's panels. And that's not really respectful. That's not really being a good colleague, right? You just show up and just present and then run away. It's important to go to other people's panels, and people appreciate that. It's really, especially if no one else goes. If you go to a panel and you're one of the only audience members there, the people in the panel will really appreciate that. And that's not only a good thing to do, that they may end up being good contacts for you. Now, make sure you also look over, one thing that's important to do, like I said, attend other people's panels. Usually there'll be a schedule, especially if it's a big conference, there'll be a schedule way ahead of time, so you can look over it and choose which ones you're going to be attending. If you, one thing I should point out too, there's going to be different meetings and other things going on. You're going to run into people, you're going to be introduced to people. If someone asks you a question and or chats with you after your panel, it may be a good idea to say to them, well, are you presenting? And if they are, try and attend their panel, because that's the start of a relationship. Now, it may not lead to anything, but it can lead to possibly further publications or future conferences. So make sure, and that's how you show that you're sincerely interested in their work and you're wanting to learn, is by attending their panel. And that's why it's really good to attend meetings if possible. For example, the Association for Asian Studies has a special meeting for people who study Korea. Other places will have special meetings only for graduate students. Those are places to go to meet more people. One thing I should, and if it's at a big conference, there will also often be an exhibit hall. This will be a place where different publishers will be exhibiting books, trying to get people to buy them or to use them in their classes. A lot of times, by the way, if you go on Sunday morning to the exhibit hall, there'll be a discount on the books because they don't want to bring the books back with them. But one thing I really have to emphasize, you're not just going there to present your paper. You're going there to learn from other people's papers and to network.